So we have another question from someone who says, my son comes home from school and needs a break, but then a short break turns into hours of him not wanting to start homework. What are some good strategies you might use to keep someone on track who's having those kinds of issues?
Yeah, yeah. Um, Study skills, homework skills, you really have to start young and establish a consistent routine. I was lucky when my kid was young. There was a program that he had to watch every day at 4:30. I'll tell you, it was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this is like a long time ago when they first came around. And
I think I had a similar issue, but go
yes,
on.
I think you're in the same age group. And anyway, if the homework didn't get done by that time, it was, the show wasn't going to be watched. So that really was his hot button. I don't know what your child's hot button is, but, you can start with that. Um, a consistent routine is really important. Get the snack in. Make sure that the workstation is ready. Sometimes if a child knows that they have a particular area to go to and it's organized, um, they might be more apt to get started. A lot of times with kids, especially with learning and attention issues, they're so unsure of the work. They don't have confidence in their ability to do the work. That can be part of the procrastination, the delay, and you want to let them know that you're there to help should they need some help. But I think, that avoidance really does come from the struggle. So recognize that. And if your child is at an age where you think he or she can grasp that, that's sort of like a metacognitive thing. Let's talk about that. I understand that, it's really hard for you to sit down and get started, and I know that you struggle. I'm there to help you, but acknowledge the feeling. I think that, that's part of the problem of getting started, the dread. And kids with learning and attention issues are fried when they come home from school. So, acknowledge that also, but say, what, the work does have to get done, and I want you to be successful, and let's come up with a plan. Um,
Absolutely. I was going to piggyback because we had a question sent in earlier saying, should there be a space dedicated to studying in my house? So I guess what would you say? What would be a good way to introduce that, and maybe what would you put there, or what would you not put there?
I would not put a cell phone there. I would, it depends on, some kids will have access to a room. I think they should be close to a parent, especially if, they're going to lose focus. But it should be their spot. And, make a trip to Staples. And, even if you get, a pencil case, let them pick out a couple of supplies for themselves. Doesn't have to be expensive, a couple of pencils, um, folders, color codings, very important. I don't want to go too off track, but a study station can even include a pair of headphones because that actually might help the child focus a bit too. But I think that's really important to know that that's the spot. It stays clean. It stays organized. Mom or dad or someone at home can make sure that it stays organized because you want it to be a place of comfort, not a stressful place, you know.
Absolutely, making sure that they're comfortable with the space and then they can be comfortable with the work.
Yeah, it's a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to another question we had got sent in before. Someone asked, how can you help your child with homework and subjects that you don't know much about?
Well, thank goodness for the internet. We can all do that, even teachers. Yeah, that is really what I would focus on. Of course, your teacher is always your best ally, too. Um, if you really see that your child's struggling, you would like to help, email the teacher and ask her to guide you along. I remember back in the day when my oldest was very young, he had an assignment on elapsed time, which is a really, really hard thing to do. And I could figure out how to do it, but the way I did it was so convoluted. So I emailed the teacher and said, can you step by step tell me how I should teach my son how to figure this out? Because there's no way I can translate what's going on in my head to his mind. So that's a great thing to do. We have resources like Khan Academy. There's a site called Learn Zillion. The skills are numerous. So just about anything that you don't understand or know about, you can really learn together, and there's benefit to that too. You can learn a lot um, from your child's studies and expand your own knowledge base. And I think your child might get a kick out of the fact that you're learning together. So that can be really a good thing. Um, you know, Also online videos I think are wonderful. There's the traditional ones like there's Brain Pop, all other that you would have to pay for, but any YouTube video or teacher tube videos go into depth. So a good internet search should really help you in that area. No more trips to the library or anything like that, on a cold winter night. Hmm.
That's great. I like that. No one ever stops learning.
Hmm.
Um, so we had another question coming in. Someone asked, how do you help kids learn to keep schedule and manage their time?
Mm. Well, yeah, some kids are just naturally disorganized. Um, I would say that in that workstation area, there's certain things that you probably should keep. Just going back to what we were saying before, you want a schedule, you want a calendar in there. Um, Maybe even a whiteboard where you can post reminders, because that constant visual reminder is going to help keep your kid on track. So and they'll enjoy writing on it also. I mean, there's I think there's some sort of a thrill out of keeping track on a whiteboard with colors and stuff. So um, that would really be, I think, a good thing. A checklist. Can you repeat the question? I kind of got sidetracked, Matt.
Sure, hang on just one sec while I pull it up. It was how you might be able to help your child manage time or manage a schedule. I guess whether it's studying or
Okay.
studying in the short term for doing homework or long term, there's a test coming up.
Right. Okay. All right. So managing time then. Some people like to use timers. They can stress kids out. Certain kids get really stressed out by timers, but if you don't make such a big deal about it, um, I think you have to know, what kind of learning style your kid has also. You know, I just think really just having a calendar, any kind of tool on their phone that would remind them. That's what I'm coming up with now.
That's fine. I'll piggyback. One thing we have understood is a tool called Tech Finder, which allows you to kind of put in your child's issues and what you're looking for. And I
Mhm.
know we have a lot of time management apps if you're looking to use looking to use technology that way. Though I'm guessing that a kind of physical calendar would be just as good. But I'll move on to the next question that we had
Okay, sorry
sent
about
in. No, 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 not at all. So this is probably something that a lot of parents struggle with. Are reward systems a good thing to use when trying to get my daughter to study? And there wasn't an age submitted, but I imagine it's on the younger side.
I think reward systems work really well for kids with, especially attention issues. You have to know your own child, but um, I think that works really well. If your child cannot stay on task, a token board works beautifully. Even three tokens. The first one can say, you know, I'm doing, um, I'm done, and well, three steps, and then get some sort of a reward. But yeah, I totally think that that's a way to go. We do need a lot of extrinsic motivators for kids with attention issues. They do not usually have that built-in intrinsic motivator that and that is all tied up into their learning and attention issue. So they do need that extrinsic reward. It's really kind of neurological, I believe. So I think that you're just providing that extra support because they can't do it on their own. So I think it's a really good idea. And I guess there's stuff on the site for reward systems, different types of reward systems. There's all different kinds that you can use.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So we just got a question from DME Brown, and they used a term that I hadn't heard before, but maybe you've heard of. He or she asked, "What are your thoughts about mind maps and organizing information for tests?" Are you familiar with that?
Sure. Yeah. Mind maps. Sure. Um, in fact, I'll talk about a different kind of map too. That's really cool. Um, Excellent way of organizing information. Mind maps, you'd have the general subject at the top of the mind map, and then you'd have these boxes and connecting lines that break down the information into finer details. Um, Fabulous for a visual learner. I love them myself. Sometimes when I, prepare for, any sort of presentation, that's really how I set myself up. And there's a lot of information I know online, and I'm sure on the site where you can see exactly how it's done. There's some software also that also does mind mapping, and if that's something that your child would benefit from, you can look into that also. A great study strategy that not too many people use, but I think it's great, is called text mapping. And if your child has a chapter to read, say in a social studies book, if you can photocopy or even maybe ask someone at school to photocopy each page, you make a scroll out of all the pages, because when you're struggling to read and struggling to hold on to information, um, you know, it's hard to look page by page and not know kind of which way you're going. The idea of text mapping is you would scotch tape horizontally each page of the text. And this way you have a full view of all the material. And then, of course, you highlight it up so you can, say highlight information um, that you think is important. You can box off vocabulary words, however you want to mark it up. But most textbooks you can't mark up. And second of all, you can't get that big picture view, which so many kids with learning and attention issues seem to need, is a preview of the big picture. So that's a really useful tool also for studying. Just put it all out there in front.
That's great. I'm gonna try that before my next presentation as well. I really like that idea. So we have another question. Someone says, organization, working memory, and self-monitoring are really important for kids to develop study strategies. How would you encourage these kinds of executive functions?
All right, so a little repetition here, but for organization, again, it's important to have a workstation, a neat workstation. Um, if your child is really distractible, a set of headphones would be really useful. Color code materials. So you want everything that's math oriented in green and anything that's science oriented in red, and so on. I think a calendar just to know where you're coming from and where you're going is so important. Um, a lot of kids with learning and attention issues do have a lot of trouble with time management, and so that's really important. Um, I wouldn't encourage eating snacks at the workstation just because it's another distraction and it can get messy. Um, I've gotten way too many papers with, last night's dinner on it and all that kind of stuff. It's not pleasant. Um, Checklists are very important. I think it really, as you're finishing each subject or each paper or each project, have a visual reminder of what's done and what needs to be done. Um, and the parent should always just check in. Don't just kind of say, all right, he's all set up, I'm done. You have to really kind of check in and monitor it. This is, when your kid is struggling, they're going to need you to have their back for a while, at least until they get into high school. Um, for studying and for um, homework, uh, note taking, Cornell notes, I think, and I know that's on the Understood site. That's a method of note taking, and that really does come in handy. And again, that's going to organize your work as you're studying. Um, the working memory issues. So, well, if your kid has low working memory, you want to have the child take some breaks. Um, like after 15 minutes of studying, he should probably just see if he can summarize everything that he has read or studied. And a lot of rereading is necessary. Sometimes it's helpful to highlight what you understand. Um, that's also very confidence building. And with each reread, highlight the next round of things that you understand to add to the first round of understanding. For working memory, what we call mnemonics, which are like acronyms or rhymes, are very helpful for a child to, hold on to certain things that might be too cumbersome for their memory. Um, it's also a good idea for studying, I think, for a child to make up their own test, kind of play the teacher, and just work backwards like that, make up their own questions. And I think that's also very motivating and confidence building. And we always say that if you can teach someone else, that is the best way to learn. In fact, I think that's sort of scientifically proven. So if you're game, have your child teach you what he knows, and I think that that would really help him or her exponentially. Um, so the other thing for working memory, which I think is very important if your child's reading a novel, you know, have him read the novel, have him use Bookshare or Learning Ally, some text to speech apps. Um, I think that can really help, or read on a Kindle or whatever device, whatever e-reader is available. Um, Remember that, apps like Bookshare and Learning Ally, you can adjust speed, which is, I think, really important, and you can adjust font also. But the point being, don't neglect Spark Notes, but don't use them as just as a shortcut, but to refer back. Like very often, when I would help my son, he would do his reading of, chapters, 5 through 8. And then I'd say, well, let's go look at the Spark Notes and just kind of tighten it up a little bit. So I think you have to kind of take that extra step if you want to make sure that your child's really grasping onto the important things. And they'll go to school much more confident. They'll be able to participate more. And again, that's very confidence building, and it just leads to more success. The more, the more success that you can build into the work that you do with your child, it benefits them exponentially in the classroom. It just kind of liberates them, and it's all very self-reinforcing. So anyway, those things I think really are good for working memory issues. Self-monitoring, you have checklists, and a very important thing for studying, and especially if your child has an IEP or a 504, is to ask the teacher, absolutely ask the teacher, and tell the case manager to put a study guide in your child's accommodations. Because very often when a child sits down to study, it looks like a big mess. And a study guide really will narrow everything down and bring focus to really what is essential. And that makes studying a lot more digestible. Um, so, checklists, self-testing, Flashcards are really good ways to self-monitor. Put questions on one side, answers on the other, and then you have a pile that you know and a pile that you don't know, and the pile keeps on getting thinner and smaller, and you're monitoring yourself and you're seeing that you're making progress. Um, you can always watch a video on the subject. Um, Multiple exposures through different modalities will always, help a child, you know, um, just really kind of get solid with his information. And it's also very reinforcing because when the child sees a video on the subject that they've been studying, they'll nod their head in agreement. They've got it. Those are all good things that can be done for self-monitoring, I think.
Those are great. I love harkening back. I love the idea of writing your own test. I can see that really clarifying what you know and what you need to know more of.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask one last quick question, which is, what about study skills for kids who might have a little bit of test anxiety? What would you say a parent might be able to do to help them overcome that?
To keep the stress level down, right? Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a lot of talk in school these days about a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. I've had some professional developments on it. There's a book on, I think it's called Growth Mindset or something like that by Carol Dweck, who I think comes out of Stanford University. And, it's very much um, how you deal with your child and their issues. A growth mindset means you reward the effort. You encourage mistakes. You explain that mistakes are the only way to move forward and learn. Um, I think Einstein even has some quotations about that. But if you could do some research on a growth mindset, I think that really does release a little bit of anxiety um, and reward that effort. Mistakes are opportunities. So that's really, how you want to frame all this stuff. There's certain tools that might make things a little bit easier if you're studying for tests. Kind of make it interesting. One thing, not even for tests, but even for maybe a difficult assignment, I've encouraged my kids to use colored pencils for like each question. Teacher won't mind, I don't think. I wouldn't. But if you want to answer question one with green and question two with red, it's a little bit more fun. It kind of takes the shift off of the work and just, especially if you're a visual kid, it makes things a little bit more interesting, kind of shifts things away. You've got to remain positive and upbeat. If you convey any worry or anxiety to your child, you're just going to make it worse. There's no benefit to that at all, to threaten. Another thing that I think might be useful also, realize that after a day of school and studying, a kid is going to be, like I said, it's going to be fried. With my kids, sometimes he would get up early in the morning and finish an assignment or study. And that proved to be really a good strategy because he was fresh and ready. Sometimes you just have to cut it down. So if your kid's really stressed out, cut it down and revisit it another time. And don't, unless your child has to get on a bus like super early in the morning, an extra 30 minutes in the morning can really be helpful.
That's great. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining. That's all the time we have for tonight. So for a complete list of all your chance to ask the experts questions, please visit understood.org and check out the experts live section. Our next event will be tomorrow's Twitter chat, where we'll be talking about early intervention for kids with learning and attention issues. And if you can't make it, remember that all of our events will be archived on understood.org, including this one, for you to watch at any time. Ginny, thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining, and I hope everyone has a great St. Patrick's Day.
Bye, Matt.
Bye.